ආරභත නික්ඛමත යොඤ්ජත බුද්ධ ශාසනේ දුනාත මච්චුනෝ සේනං නලාගාරං වකුඤ්ජරෝ යෝයිමස්මින් ධම්ම විනයේ අප්පමත්තෝ විහෙස්සති පහාය ජාති සංසාරං දුක්ඛසන්තං කරිස්සති බුද්ධං 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 වන්දේ ධම්මං 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 වන්දේ සංඝං 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 වන්දේ බුද්ධං ධම්මං සංඝං වන්දේ. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dhamma, homage to the Sangha, homage to the Triple Gem. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Venerable says, monastics, friends in the Dhamma, at the Siri Sampanna Monastery, we gather here as Dhamma friends for listening to the Buddha's message. This is a most valuable moment in our life. Whenever we listen to Dhamma, that is a very fortunate moment in our life. Buddhism says it as Savananutariya, the best activity that we do through our ears. The best hearing what we do through our ears is that listening to Dhamma. While we are listening to Dhamma, if we are listening to the correct message of the Buddha, that is one of the places that we liberate from suffering. Entire Buddhism is that in one side, practicing metta bhavana, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. On the other side, practicing metta bhavana. On the other side, practicing mindfulness based on breathing meditation. We keep our attention around the nose swap lip in the present moment. At the same time, we can be aware of our breathing in and out. When mind gradually gains concentration, we understand. Whatever we understand, it means our mental situation, our consciousness works at that moment. At that moment, the entire physical world, material world has completely ceased without remaining anything. With this understanding, we release from the outside world when we see the world as empty, and we come to equanimity, upekkha, we live equanimously. This is the final result of practicing Dhamma. When we discuss the Buddha's message, the most valuable message of the Buddha is that the Buddha says, in the past and the present, I explain only suffering and the cessation of suffering. On the other side, Buddha says, if something arises, it is suffering. When something ceases, that is also suffering. That is a very important message. What is that? If we have something in this world, it means the 5 groups of existence with attachment, with clinging, the 5 aggregates. Whether we like or not, whether we know or not, this is the reality. What are the 5 aggregates? Rupa, form, Vedana, sensations, Sanya, perception, Sankhara, mental formations, and Vijnana, consciousness. These 5 things are remaining in this world whenever we take something. Even though something has already ceased, still we are taking it, there is something outside world. It means we are in this samsaric circle, we are not away from suffering. Whenever we think that the first experience, when we contact something through our senses, that experience has completely ceased at the moment. When I am understand something, at that moment, in the new karma stage, I understand it through my consciousness. That consciousness also arises and ceases at the moment. Buddha says, he explains only suffering and the cessation of suffering. In this situation, in this Dhamma discussion, we are going to explain the 4 Noble Truths. 4 Noble Truths. This is the heart of Buddhism. Buddha gives us an example. All the foot of animals who are in the jungle are included into the feet of elephant. All the foot of animals in the jungle are included into the feet of animal, feet of elephant. Similarly, all the doctrines that Buddha has explained for 45 years can be summarized into the 4 Noble Truths. Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga. Suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. Here there is a very special word, Arya Satya. This is the special truth. Dukkha and the Arya Satya are different. Dukkha, suffering, can be summarized, can be understood by anyone. But this Arya Satya, the special truth, can be understood by a person who is listening to Dhamma. Here firstly we discuss the dukkha or the suffering. When we discuss these 4 facts, we should know the difference between common suffering and the special suffering, the Arya Satya. Dukkha is explained as Birth is suffering, decay is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, grief, despair, they are suffering. Lamentation, so on. And finally, Buddha says, in short, the existence of the five aggregates based on clinging are suffering. And the next one, 𝒮𝓃 what is the fact of suffering? What is the origin of suffering? The origin of suffering is that clinging or attachment. And the Nirodha-Saccaya, the cessation of craving. And Magga-Saccaya, the way, the path leads to getting rid of suffering. These four things we understand in the common way. Finally, we understand the way that leads to getting rid of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path, 𝒂𝐴𝐷𝒾 ℒ𝒶𝓃𝓀𝒾. When we discuss the Four Noble Truths, we should understand a very special explanation about suffering in Buddhism. It is 𝒂𝐴𝐷𝒾. Dhamma explains very special sentence. According to the Abhidhamma Pitaka, that explains as if there are anything besides physical suffering and mental suffering, it is the 𝒂𝐴𝐷𝒾, 𝒐𝑂. If there are anything besides physical suffering and mental suffering, it is the dukkha 𝒂𝐴𝐷𝒾. What is that? It is not physical suffering or mental suffering. That has a very deep understanding, meaning. Very first experience that we receive through our senses. The very first experience that is neutral. But after cessation of it, we have suffering. The very first experience means when we contact something at the very first experience, that experience is neutral. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, that first experience is actually it is neutral. Then after cessation of first experience, we have next experience that we have through our mind consciousness. Mind consciousness. Then we create the suffering. That is suffering. The very first experience is the 𝒂𝐴𝐷𝒾, the special suffering. You know the common things: birth, decay, sickness, these things can be understood by anyone as suffering. The Buddha, before he attained enlightenment, as a layperson, he had understood these sufferings, decay, sickness, these things were understood by the Bodhisattva before he did his great renunciation. After he attained enlightenment, the Buddha says, I realized something that I had never heard. When I attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, I realized something which is very special. In Pali language, it is said in 𝒮𝓾 ℒ𝒶𝓃, which is his first sermon, Pubbaya Anusuttesu Dhammesu. I realized something which I had never heard. This is the thing what the Buddha had understood. What is that? The very first experience. By his own understanding, the Buddha realized it. If we don't have this understanding after cessation of first experience, we create the next experience as me, as myself. Then we have attachment. That is the origin of suffering. The very nearest reason of suffering is that attachment or clinging or trishna, craving. Craving arises because of misunderstanding of our first experience. After finishing something in the first experience, we think still it is happening in our world. We live in the past experience. We live through our consciousness in the present moment, but still we are in the past experience. That is why we are suffering in this world. It is the origin of suffering. And the next one, the cessation of suffering. If we can overcome the attachment of this suffering, that is the cessation of suffering. If we want to overcome attachment, what should we do? We can say, I have no attachment in this world. We can say, but still, if we know something there is outside world, automatically we have the attachment. The cause of suffering is that attachment, but we can't overcome attachment. Why do we need to do? We should understand the reality. For that we have to overcome ignorance or delusion, avidya. If we know that the material world has completely ceased, then we don't have any attachment to the world. Attachment or craving arises based on ignorance. What is the ignorance? We think that still the material world is around me. That is the nature of the process of becoming. If we want to overcome this attachment, we should cultivate our wisdom, which is the opposite of ignorance or delusion. For that there is a path, which is the fourth truth, 𝐴𝐸 𝒦𝒐 ℚ the Noble Eightfold Path, the way of getting rid of suffering. With this understanding, we practice right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Why do we need to practice the Noble Eightfold Path? For our inner peace, for our happiness, for the getting rid of suffering. As soon as we come to practice Dhamma, especially when we come to the practice of mindfulness, which is based on the Noble Eightfold Path, we come to experience the happiness. That happiness is in the present moment. Whenever we are mindful in the present moment, we are aware of our mind. When we are aware of our mind, when unwholesome mental states come to our mind, we immediately understand, I have these kind of negative mental formations in my mind. Then we can overcome those negativities from our minds. When we purify our mind from negative thoughts, we are happy at this present moment. It means we are experiencing happiness in the present moment. Until we come to this practice, we are seeking happiness, but we aren't experiencing happiness. We are finding happiness. We are heading for happiness. We are seeking for happiness, but we have no real happiness until we die. We die without satisfaction. If we want to satisfy our life, we have to overcome negative thoughts from our minds. When we are mindful, whenever my mind has anger, lust, or ignorance, we immediately understand my mind has these negativities at that moment. When we see it, immediately those negativities go away. As a result of overcoming these negativities from our mind, we understand whether my mind is liberated or not from suffering. Whenever we understand our minds, and if we can overcome negativities from our minds, we gradually come to liberation based on equanimity or 𝒾𝓃. Not only that, on this spiritual path, we can associate the world as we are interested in, as we want, as we wish. If we want to experience the world as beautiful, we can do it. If we want to see the world as ugly or impure, we can do it. Because we can control our mind as we want, as we wish. Without changing anything in the external world, just cultivating our positive perceptions, sanya, we can associate the world as we wish, as we want. That is the very special thing. That is the highest result of this practice. And also there is a special discourse which names 𝒮𝓃 ℒ𝒶𝓃. The discourse of 𝒮𝓃 explains that if a person understands one truth, he is able to understand other three facts. That is also very important. If a person understands the suffering, he understands the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the way that leads to getting rid of suffering. If a person understands the origin of suffering, he understands suffering and the cessation of suffering and the way that leads to getting rid of suffering. If a person understands the cessation of suffering, he understands the suffering and the origin of suffering and the way that leads to getting rid of suffering. If a person understands the path that leads to getting rid of suffering, he understands suffering, the origin of suffering, and the cessation of suffering as well. Why is that? When a person understands the Noble Eightfold Path, he understands other three facts. How does he do it? 𝒦𝐴 ℚ ℚ or the Noble Eightfold Path starts with right understanding. What is the right understanding? Understanding the Four Noble Truths. He understands dukkha, samudaya, nirodha magga. And also there is a other special thing that the Abhidhamma explains. Dukkha, ℒ𝐶𝐻, and dukkha. The difference between dukkha and dukkha ℒ𝐶𝐻. Dukkha ℒ𝐶𝐻 means the very first experience, and also not only that, the primary dukkha suffering such as decay, sickness, aging, death, that is also the dukkha arya ℒ𝐶𝐻. Why is that? That dukkha also is based on the dukkha arya ℒ𝐶𝐻. If we have some kind of decay, sorrow, lamentation, death, separation, sickness, that suffering we created based on the first experience, which is neutral. Therefore, it is said as dukkha and dukkha arya ℒ𝐶𝐻 as well. Next few days we will discuss it again and again. When we go to the deeper understanding, we discuss these doctrines in Buddhism, how we can understand these Four Noble Truths again and again. As a result of understanding these Four Noble Truths, whenever we find something in the outside world as it is my, me or myself, we are afraid of it. Why is that? Whatever we have something in this world as permanent, as me, as myself, that will end with suffering when those persons or other materials gradually going to worse or destroy, we are suffering one day. Not only after destroying or losing them, but even just now when we are going to maintain them, actually we have suffering there. But it doesn't mean that we should overcome, we should reject all things at once. While we are doing our duties, responsibilities and obligations, when we practice Dhamma, we gradually go forward, reducing suffering, attaining our spiritual happiness. Because when we go forward by practicing Dhamma, we take a refuge within us based on mindfulness. Even though we do our duties and responsibilities for the world, we know very well our final refuge depends on myself, my understanding, my practice, my purification of mind. Then we always try to purify our mind from craving, anger and delusion by practicing mindfulness based on the Eightfold Path. Here there is a very special doctrine which is the Four Noble Truths. Not only that, here we understand Paticampada or the dependent origination and the five aggregates as well. When we understand the Buddha's message very clearly, according to suffering and the cessation of suffering, these three facts are combined. What they are? Understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding the Paticampada or dependent origination, and understanding the five aggregates, the five existence of clinging. How do we see it? The Four Noble Truths, Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga, suffering, origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. These are the Four Noble Truths. How here we understand the Paticampada? When we understand the second truth, Dukkha, Samudaya, Satya, when we have craving or attachment, we have suffering. Attachment arises because of ignorance or delusion. Avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, and so on. With the arising of ignorance, mental formations arise. With the arising of mental formations, our consciousness arises. With the arising of consciousness, mentality and corporeality arise. So on, finally we go. With the arising of the process of becoming, we have birth. When we have birth based on ignorance, we have all the sufferings in this world. It doesn't mean that our first birth, but every moment we are born. whenever we contact something, if we are ignorant, our entire world is born at this moment, since we create the world at this moment based on ignorance. We have a world in the outside material world based on ignorance. It means we are born in this world. But finally, as soon as we completely eradicate ignorance, immediately we overcome birth. Not only that, we overcome death, decay, sickness, sorrow, lamentation, all the sufferings. We usually think that the arahant will end his suffering or the birth or death after he will do his parinibbana or last passing away. Not. Whenever a person eradicates ignorance completely, when he attains enlightenment, immediately he overcomes decay, sickness, sorrow, birth, even death. Death means not just common death, but the suffering of death. The death of suffering. Death and the suffering of death are different. Even arahants become death one day. That is not suffering. That is just a process. But he overcomes his death as soon as he attains enlightenment. Why is that? When he doesn't have anything in this material world, how he becomes sickness, decay, death, and separation. All these sufferings depend on our ignorance. It means we have the material world in this world. That is why we have suffering. When a person becomes enlightenment, he overcomes 4 foods. There are 4 nutriments that we already have. One is the material nutriments that we take every day. It is said in Buddhism as the 𝒮𝓃 ℒ𝒶𝓃 and also 𝑝𝑎𝑠𝑠ahara, the nutriment of sensation. Always when we contact something, we enjoy it as it is mine. That is the 𝑝𝑎𝑠𝑠ahara, the nutriment of contact or the sensation. And also viññānāhara, the nutriment of consciousness. The nutriment of consciousness. That also should be overcome when we attain enlightenment. What is that? Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, so on. There are 6 consciousnesses which based on the very first experience. When we contact something through our eye consciousness, through our eye consciousness arises at the moment. Even though it has already ceased, now we deal with our consciousness in the present moment, but still we are in the eye consciousness which has already ceased in the past. Now we take it as a nutriment, as a food. In this situation we have vijnana ahara, the nutriment of consciousness. Arahants eradicate this nutriment of consciousness too when he attain enlightenment. Not only that, there is another nutriment of food, that mano sanchetana ahara, the nutriment of mental formations. What is that? Creating karma, volition. If we think there is something which happened in the past, it means we are creating new karma. That is also a food or nutriment. The Arahant eradicates material food, the nutriment of materials. The Arahant has already eradicated the 𝒮𝓃 ℒ𝒶𝓃, the nutriment of material things, of food. Having eradicated nutriment materials, he is begging food. He is eating. Sometimes he eats a few food. Sometimes they may eat a lot of food, having full of bowl. No matter whether he eats a little or a lot, but he has already eradicated the desire of the nutriments of materials. Why is that? When we eat something, our mind depends on the material food. Wow, this is very delicious food. I am eating the food which is in the plate. Based on ignorance, we are eating something. Whenever we eat something, our mind depends on the material food. Even though that experience has already ceased, our mind depends on the material food. It means we haven't overcome the desire of food. But Arahant, he is going to beg food in the morning, having the bowl. He goes on the street from home to home. He brings food. He eats food. When he is eating food, he knows very well, when I enjoy some food, the material world has completely ceased. I deal with my mind consciousness. That mind consciousness also arises and ceases at the moment. That is why he has already eradicated the desire of the 𝒮𝓃 ℒ𝒶𝓃, the desire of the nutriment of material foods. Not only that, he has eradicated the desire of sparsahara or pasahara, the nutriment of sensations. What is that? When he looks at something, he has overcome the eye sensation. What is that? He knows very well. When he sees something, he can contact something at the present moment through his eye, with eye consciousness. But when he recognizes something through his eyes, eye consciousness, form, color, everything has ceased. Everything I understand through my mind consciousness. It means he has overcome the nutriment of sensation or feelings. And also he has eradicated the desire of vijnanahara, the nutriment of consciousness. When he understands something, he knows very well. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, body consciousness, so on. There are 6 consciousnesses based on the vipaka level or the result level. When he recognizes something through his mind consciousness in the present moment, based on wisdom, he has already eradicated the 6 senses in the primary level experience. That is why he lives without the vijnanahara, the nutriment of consciousness. Not only that, he has eradicated the mano sanchetana, the nutriment of volition or mental formations. If his mind doesn't depend on anything in the external world or even in mind consciousness, it means he is free, his mind is liberated from the world. He is the only arising and ceasing of 5 aggregates. Every moment, the 5 aggregates form, sensation, perception, consciousness, mental formations. They are arising, ceasing, arising, ceasing, arising, ceasing. The mind that he reflects on this reality is also impermanent. That present mind consciousness also arises and ceases at the moment. This is the real liberation that definitely helps us to live equanimously, in equanimity. This is the word of the Buddha. This message, Arya Satya, the noble truths, the 4 noble truths, we can see all the doctrines that the Buddha has explained for 45 years in this very common message, which is the 4 noble truths. The first noble truth should be understood. The second noble truth should be overcome. Next one should be achieved. Fourth one should be practiced. Dukkha satyam parineyam. The noble truth of suffering should be understood. Samudaya satyam pahatabbang. The noble truth of the origin of suffering should be overcome. Craving should be overcome. Nirodha Satyam 𝒶𝓃𝓾𝓃. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering should be achieved. Magga Satyam 𝐓𝐢𝐩𝐢𝐻. The noble truth of the path that leads to getting rid of suffering should be practiced. First one, pariññaya, should be understood. The second one should be overcome. The third one should be achieved. Fourth one should be practiced. Dukkha Satyam pariññayam. The noble truth of suffering should be understood, should be realized. Samudaya Satyam 𝒑𝓃𝓾𝓏. The noble truth of the origin of suffering should be overcome, should be eradicated. Nirodha Satyam 𝒶𝓃𝓃𝓏. The noble truth of the origin of suffering should be achieved. Magga Satyam 𝐓𝐢𝐩𝐢𝐻. The noble truth of the path that leads to getting rid of suffering, the noble eightfold path, should be practiced. Then our entire practice depends on the Four Noble Truths. We are always aware of whether I am in suffering or not, whether my mind is liberated from suffering or not, whether I am suffering or not, whether I am ignorant or not. This is our exam. Always we are in an exam. We have been writing many exams in our lives for our happiness, for our career, for our jobs. But this exam definitely helps us to eradicate all the sufferings from the entire samsaric journey. Always we are aware of Dukkha Satya, Samudaya Satya, Magga Satya, Nirodha Satya. The Buddha says, as a wise person, the highest facts that should be understood is that the five aggregates. As a wise person, the highest facts that should be understood, should be overcome are 𝐓𝐢𝐩𝐢𝐻𝐻 𝒏𝓃𝓃, ignorance and the clinging or craving. The highest qualities that a wise person should achieve are vidya vimukti, understanding and liberation. The highest qualities that a wise person should practice are samathocha vipassanacha, or the tranquility or concentration and insight meditation. It comes in Abhiññā Sutta in Anguttara Nikāya. Abhiññā Sutta explains the highest facts that a wise person should deal with. As a wise person, our highest education is that understanding the five aggregates. This is our real property. Whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we smell, whatever we remember, whatever we understand, whatever we are thinking of, everything is that the five aggregates. We are living with these five aggregates, even though we are unknown these five things. We don't know these five things, even though we do not know these five things. Actually, our entire life is these five aggregates. Buddha says, in all spiritual ages, every person should reflect on these five aggregates. For the very common person in the worldly level, they also reflect on these five things as impermanent. The 𝒮𝓃 person who has already come some kind of spiritual levels, such as Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, they also should practice five aggregates as impermanent, arising and ceasing. Not only that, even someone after attaining enlightenment until they pass away, they also should practice these five things as impermanent, as arising and ceasing for their 𝒮𝓃 ℒ𝒶𝓃𝓀, the visible happiness. In this life, they should live peacefully until they die. For that, they again and again reflect on this reality. Actually, whenever they attain enlightenment, they are so peaceful, but again they have to reflect on it again and again for their spiritual progress, spiritual happiness in this immediate life. Actually, I know very well this is so difficult to understand. I know it. But we were born in this world in order to understand this reality. We have received this precious life in order to understand this reality. If we can understand this reality based on the Four Noble Truths, our life is so valuable, so precious. Since we are rich in wisdom, we know how suffering arises, how suffering ceases. Other people who don't know this message, they may think that they are suffering because of no money, no properties, no jobs, no education. We know very well, even though we received all education in this world, even though we are the owner of this entire planet, the earth, we are not away from suffering. Whenever someone blames you, we immediately get upset, we get angry. We are controlled by the external world until we come to this understanding. Whenever we come to this understanding, we make a refuge within us. That is the real refuge, real protection, real insurance, real assurance, real emancipation, real enlightenment, liberation, freedom. Since our mind doesn't depend on anything in the external world or persons. It completely depends on wisdom. Whenever we reflect on arising and ceasing of five aggregates, it means we completely live based on wisdom. Whenever we have that wisdom, nobody can disturb our peace of mind. Since we have made a refuge within us based on mindfulness and wisdom. Okay, if you have any question, you can ask. How long it took? More than 1 hour. Any question? Actually, don't worry if you are here. If you continue this lecture series, you can listen to this message again and again. And also we record everything and we edit them and we upload everything in YouTube. Later you can listen to again all the sermons. You can listen to again and again. And also about these sermons, we have enough articles in English. If you are interested in, you can refer internet and you can read those articles and you can improve your understanding. Okay. About these doctrines, we have written many articles. You can read them. Hundreds of articles are there. Okay. You have all the sources, Dhamma sources there. You can read, you can listen to. All the facilities are in internet. Okay, thank you for your attention and listening to Dhamma. We really appreciate your participation. This is the way how we cultivate the value of our life. By listening Dhamma, by practicing Dhamma, by reducing our negative thoughts from our minds, we give a very highest value for our life. If we are rich in spirituality, our parents who gave us this valuable life are also so valuable. No matter whether they are alive or passed away, they also can be happy when they look at us. Why is that? Even though you do a very high payment job, you are not away from suffering. But when you practice Dhamma, you can overcome suffering. You are happy. Whenever you are happy, mostly your mother and father are happy. No matter whether they are no or not Buddhism. When you are happy, your parents are also happy. Okay, thank you again. May all your spiritual goals meet with success by the power of listening to this message and practicing this valuable message. And finally, may you attain the final bliss of liberation, Nibbana. Dukkhaṃ paṇṭhāca nirdukkhaṃ Bhayaṃ paṇṭhāca nirbhayaṃ Sokam pantaya nisoka hontu sabbe pipanino. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. May all your educational and spiritual goals meet with success. Finally, may all of us attain the supreme bliss of liberation, Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.